In this video, I'm going to show you how to import your work cell from Inventor into 3ds Max, and then how to do a simple animation of the palette sliding on the rollers. So let's start by clicking the big M in the upper left-hand corner and going to Import. Now you can either import the work cell you made with the first video, or you can import the completed work cell we've provided. Once you've found the file, you can hit OK, and the Inventor File Import options opens. There's a few different import options we can choose from. Probably the bigger ones are the merge and replace options, where you can merge the file you're importing with the current scene, or you can completely replace the current scene, like we've selected. And the second one is the mesh resolution, which determines how crisp your models are. For most cases, we're just going to use the default settings for importing. Your model may take a while to load, which is okay, but I've skipped ahead. So now here's our work cell imported into 3ds Max. Now it's important to note that all of our constraints from Inventor are now gone, because these are no longer solid objects, but meshes that represent the surfaces of each object. For example, if we select the Move command, we can move this roller around freely. Now there's no way to snap it back to its original position except to undo the Move commands or to line it up by eye. So first what we're going to do is take the palette on the center slider at the end and delete it. This will give us room so we can animate the palette at the base sliding forward. Now we're also going to animate this slider moving the new palette beneath the robot and the palette sliding forward onto the rollers. For most purposes, I like to use the set key feature instead of the auto key feature, but in some cases we'll need to use the auto key to key specific properties such as visibility, which I'll talk about later. So let's start by going into our set key mode. So let's hit Ctrl A to select all of our objects and set an initial keyframe at frame 0 for each object. Then let's slide our timeline slider down to frame 30 and select our palette and each one of the boxes on the palette. We can do this by holding the Control key each time we click. Now with everything selected that we want to move, we can drag along the axis until the palette's at the end of the slider, and then we can hit the key to set a keyframe. One thing I'd like to point out is that you need to be in set key mode or auto key mode for the animation to work. If you don't see the red bar and you try to move your objects and set keyframes, it'll look like it's setting a keyframe, as I'm showing now, but the animation won't actually happen. All this is going to do is offset your piece for when the real animation plays, and everything's going to be off by what you move the piece by. So now you see our box ended up under our robot. So now I'm just going to hit Ctrl Z to get our box back to its original position, and then just make sure the animation plays. So let's go back to set key mode, and what we're going to do is actually slide our keyframe over to frame 60. This will make our animation happen over 2 seconds instead of 1 second, and it should look a little bit smoother. So let's go ahead and play that. So now that that animation is complete, what I'm going to do is hide our robot so it's easier to see the slider in the back. We can do this by holding the Control key and selecting everything we want to hide, then right-clicking and hit Hide Selected. So now what we're going to do is use the same technique to animate this slider coming forward and dropping the palette off at the middle conveyor. So if we select both the palette and the slider, we can move it just like we did before and set a keyframe. What you'll notice when you play it back is the palettes actually move simultaneously, which isn't what we want. What we want is the first palette to move to the end and then the new palette to move forward. So we can use a technique we learned in the previous video where we hold the shift key and slide the initial keyframe over to frame 60 when we want the palette to start moving again, as I've already done. Now if you ever need to increase the frame count on your timeline, what you can do is come to this little box in the right hand corner called Time Configuration and click it. And that'll bring this pop out where you can control the frame rate of your animation and a few other things. But what I normally use this for is to increase the end time on the timeline. So we can increase this to 150 and hit OK. And that'll increase the length of our timeline so we have more room to work with. So now we can just double check and make sure our palettes are moving at the right times. Next, what we're going to do is move this second palette onto the original roller. So we can move our timeline to the new time we want and slide the palette off just as before, leaving a little bit of room for the robot table. And then we can add a keyframe. So now we can use this trick where we take the original position frame of the slider and we can use shift and drag that over to the other side of our second frame. What that'll do is return our slider to the exact same position as it was before without us having to actually move it and set a new keyframe. What you'll notice is that slider wants to move back before the palette's off completely. So what we need to do again is make that slider pause by using the shift key and dragging its keyframe over. So now you can see the slider pauses as the palette comes off and then returns to its original position. So now we can play the full animation and see what it looks like. Now we can unhide our robot by right-clicking and selecting Unhide All. And now when we replay our animation, everything's there. In the next video, I'm going to teach you how to set up this robot so we can animate it moving boxes.